I'll never forget the sound of the mug shattering on the linoleum floor, nor the scalding hot coffee burning my wrinkled face, nor the look of pure contempt in my daughter's eyes when she screamed that I was nothing but a useless burden in her life. My name is Clara Jenkins. I'm 67 years old, and for 42 of those years, I believed that being a mother meant accepting anything. I believed my worth as a woman was tied up in sacrificing myself until I disappeared. I believed that true love was enduring every humiliation in silence. I was wrong. Discovering that simple truth, however, cost me decades of my life and nearly all of my dignity. That Tuesday morning started like all the rest. I woke up at 5, when my body just won't let me sleep anymore. The bones creak, the joints ache, and sleep fades with the years, just like everything else. I got up slowly, feeling every one of my 67 years in my worn-out knees, and shuffled toward the kitchen of the house I bought with my own 2 hands 30 years ago. This house. My house. The one I paid for sewing formal gowns until my fingers bled. The house where I raised my daughter alone after my husband Arthur passed away when I was only 25. The house where I now felt like an intruder, a barely tolerated stranger, like an old piece of furniture that gets in the way but no one has the heart to toss out. I set the water to boil on the stove. The scent of fresh coffee began to fill the kitchen. That smell always reminded me of the quiet mornings decades ago when Arthur was still alive and our daughter, Tanisha, was a little girl who called me Mama and hugged me before heading off to school. How distant all of that seems now. So far away and nearly unreal, as if it happened to someone else entirely. Tanisha was already sitting at the kitchen table, her phone in hand, scrolling with that bitter expression that had become a permanent feature of her face over the last few years. I didn't recognize her anymore. The sweet child I watched dance in all her school festivals, the dreamy teenager who wanted to be a teacher, the young woman who swore she would always take care of me when I got older. All of that was gone. In its place was this 42-year-old woman, full of resentment, who blamed me for all her failures. Her husband, Derek Price, had left for work early. My granddaughter, Journey, was still asleep in the bedroom I'd fixed up especially for her when they moved in with me 3 years ago. 3 years that felt like 30. 3 years in which I'd become the unpaid maid in my own home. 3 years of complaints, contempt, heavy silence, and looks that told me clearly I was surplus to requirements. I poured the coffee into a simple white mug, one I'd owned forever. I placed it carefully in front of Tanisha. She didn't even look up from her phone. "This coffee is cold," she said, without even tasting it, without bringing the mug near her lips. "I just brewed it, honey," I replied softly. "It's hot, I promise." "Well, I say it's cold," she insisted, her tone hardening. "And it's watery, too. You messed up the coffee again, Mama, just like you mess up everything lately." I tried to explain that I followed the same recipe as always, used the same amount of grounds, that the water was boiling, but my words seemed to bounce off an invisible wall. She didn't want to hear. She never wanted to hear me. Suddenly, she sprang up from the chair violently. The chair scraped the floor with a sound that sent shivers down my spine. She grabbed the mug with both hands, and before I could register what was happening, before I could shield myself or move away, she threw the coffee straight into my face. The scalding liquid hit my skin. It burned. It burned so much that for a second, I couldn't even breathe. The coffee streamed down my face, my neck, soaking my old floral blouse, but the physical pain was nothing compared to what came next. "You're just like your coffee, Mama," Tanisha shrieked, her voice filled with a hatred I never thought possible. "Old, bitter, and completely useless. I'm sick of you, sick of seeing you here every day taking up space, being a burden. You are dead weight in this house." She moved closer, her face inches from mine. "Everything you do is wrong. Your food tastes awful. Your clothes smell like an old lady. Your presence makes me sick. You shuffle your feet when you walk. You breathe too loud. You're always just there, always bothering me, always existing when you shouldn't be. I wish you'd just disappear already." The words sliced right through me. Every syllable was a silent stab in a place in my soul I didn't know existed. I stood there, coffee dripping from my chin, staining the floor I had just mopped the night before. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something inside me just froze over. For a moment, as she continued to spew poison with her words, my mind traveled back in time. I saw all those nights I stayed up until dawn sewing prom dresses for other families, earning barely enough to pay for the private academy Tanisha insisted on. I saw the expensive birthday parties I organized alone, selling homemade dinner rolls and pies on the corner for weeks to scrape the money together. I saw the new shoes, the brand-name school supplies, the clothes that always had to be from expensive stores because all my friends have those brands, Mama. I remembered when Tanisha was 18 and wanted to go to college. I sold my gold earrings, the only ones left from my own mother, to pay for her first semester. She didn't even say thank you. She dropped out 6 months later because she didn't like getting up early. I remembered when she met Derek. I knew he wasn't a good man. I saw it in his eyes from day one. That way he calculated everything, measuring things only by their dollar value. But Tanisha was in love, and I kept silent. I kept silent because I had already learned my opinion didn't matter. They got married. I paid half the wedding cost, selling the new sewing machine that had taken me so long to buy. I went back to using my old Singer, the one that made my back ache after hours of work. It didn't matter. It was my daughter's wedding. 3 years later, they came back with Journey, who was still a baby, saying they just needed a place to stay for a few months while they saved money. Months turned into years. Years turned into my nightmare. In the beginning, they tried to hide it. Derek spoke to me with forced politeness. Tanisha still smiled occasionally. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, I became their servant. I cooked, I washed, I ironed, I cleaned, and I paid the electricity, the water, the gas, and the groceries. They contributed almost nothing, always with excuses. "This month is tough, Mama. We'll pay you next payday. Don't be selfish. We're your family." And I accepted it, because that's what I was taught, because my mother always told me a good woman sacrifices for her family, because I believed that was love. But what Tanisha had just done to me, that wasn't love. It never was. I wiped my face with the edge of my blouse. The coffee was cooling on my skin, leaving a sticky, unpleasant feeling. I looked up and truly looked at my daughter, as if seeing her for the first time in years. I saw a woman who was bitter, frustrated with her own life, desperately looking for someone to blame. I saw someone who had never learned that decisions have consequences, because I was always there to rescue her, to pay for her mistakes, to be her safety net. I saw the person my little girl had become, and I didn't like what I saw. Something inside me clicked, like an old thread that has been stretched too far finally snapping, like a rusty door that finally gives way after years of pushing, like waking up from a long, confusing dream and finally seeing things clearly. I walked slowly toward the living room door. My legs were shaking, but each step was firm. I opened the door wide. The morning sun poured in like a spotlight, illuminating the entryway. I turned to Tanisha and spoke in a voice I didn't recognize as my own, so calm it was frightening. "Get out." She blinked, confused. "What did you say?" "I said get out. Pack your things and leave my house now." Tanisha laughed. It was a nervous, disbelieving laugh. "You're crazy. I live here." "This house," I said, and every word came out solid, heavy, and final, "is in my name. It always has been. I bought it with my labor, with my hands, with my sweat, and I want you out of it right now." "You can't do this. I'm your daughter." "You are my daughter," I replied. "But you stopped treating me like your mother a long time ago. You turned me into your enemy, your maid, the target of all your frustration. Well, it's over. Derek will be back, and we'll sort this out, you'll see." "Derek has to go too. When he arrives, I'll tell him the same thing. You don't have the right to be here. You don't have the right to treat me the way you did." Tanisha went pale. For the first time in years, I saw fear in her eyes, real fear that I was serious. Mama, I was angry. I didn't mean— Yes, you did, I interrupted. You meant every word, and you've probably been thinking them for a long time. Now you have to live with that, but not here, not in my house, not in my presence. And Journey? You're going to kick out your granddaughter too? Journey can stay if she wants, but you and Derek are leaving. You have until he gets home to pack what's yours. The rest stays here because I paid for it. You're a cruel, selfish old woman. Maybe, I accepted. Or maybe I'm finally learning not to let myself be treated like trash in my own home. Tanisha stomped up the stairs. I heard her violently throwing things into suitcases and slamming drawers. Journey woke up from the noise and came out of her room in pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Grandma, what's going on? I walked over to my 15-year-old granddaughter and stroked her hair. Your mother and father are going to leave, baby, but you can stay if you want to. Why are they leaving? I didn't lie to her. Children can sense lies. They feel it in the air. Because your mother treated me very badly, Journey. And I decided I won't accept being treated badly anymore. Not by her. Not by anyone. Journey hugged me. I felt her tears wetting my already coffee-stained blouse. I'm sorry, Grandma. I saw how she talked to you. I saw how they treated you. I always wanted to say something, but I was scared. It's not your fault, my love. It never was. Tanisha came downstairs half an hour later with 2 poorly closed suitcases and a red face from crying. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of helplessness, of frustration that her controlled world was crumbling. This isn't over, she threatened from the doorway. I'm calling lawyers. This house should be mine too. Talk to whoever you like, I replied. The paperwork is clear. The house is mine. I bought it alone in 1995, before you were even married. You have no legal claim to it. You'll pay for this. I've already paid enough, Tanisha. I paid with 42 years of my life, with my youth, with my dreams, with my health. I don't owe you anything else. She slammed the door shut so hard the windows rattled. Journey and I stayed in silence, listening to her footsteps fade down the street. Are they really just going to leave like that? My granddaughter asked. Yes, my love, they really can, and they really are. The next few hours passed in a kind of fog. I cleaned the coffee off the floor. I washed my face with cold water. I felt the burns on my skin, slight but present, physical reminders of what had happened. Derek arrived around noon. He walked into the house with that entitled attitude he always had, as if my home belonged to him. Where's Tanisha? He asked, looking around. She left, and you have to leave too. He let out a mocking laugh. What did you say, mother-in-law? I said, get out. This is my house. It was never yours. I want you to take your things and get lost. His expression changed. The mask of forced kindness dropped, revealing the real Derek I always knew existed. You've lost your mind, Clara. I live here. I have rights. You have no rights. Check the papers if you want. This house is in my name, bought with my money before you were ever in my daughter's life. You didn't pay a dime toward this property. Tanisha is going to hear about this. She's heard me already. You've all heard enough from me. Now it's my turn to speak, and what I'm saying is that you need to go. He took a step toward me, trying to intimidate me with his height and presence, but something in my gaze stopped him. Maybe he saw that I had nothing left to lose. Maybe he saw that 42 years of holding back had ended in one quick blow. He turned, trudged heavily up the stairs, and came down 20 minutes later with a suitcase and a duffel bag. This isn't over, Clara. You'll see. Whatever is going to happen will happen, but not here, not in my house, not in front of me. He left without saying goodbye to Journey, who was watching everything from the staircase. When the door closed, my granddaughter ran down and hugged me tight. What happens now, Grandma? Now, we live in peace, baby. For the first time in a long time, we live in peace. That night, after Journey had gone to sleep, I sat in the dark living room. The house was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet. It wasn't the heavy, tense silence of before, when I tiptoed around so as not to bother anyone. It was a clean, empty silence, full of possibilities. I touched my face where the coffee had burned me. The skin was sensitive, but it wasn't serious. It would heal in a few days. The other wounds, the invisible ones, those would take longer. But they would heal too. I had to believe it. My phone rang. It was Tanisha. I let it ring until it gave up. She called again and again and one more time. I didn't answer any of the calls. The next day, the text started, "Mama, let's talk. You're overreacting. I'm coming back and we're going to fix this. You can't do this to me." I didn't respond to any of them. On the third day, Derek came back. He pounded on the door, shouting that he would sue me, that he knew lawyers, that he was going to take the house. I called the police. They arrived, asked for his ID, and explained that he was on private property without the owner's authorization. They drove him away with a warning. He didn't come back after that. Journey stayed with me for a week, but Tanisha's pressure was too much. The girl cried every time her mother called, begging her to come home. Finally, she packed her things one rainy afternoon. "Grandma, I don't want to leave you, but Mama says if I don't come back, she won't let me see you again." "It's okay, my love," I said, hugging her tight. "I understand. And when you turn 18, when you're an adult, you can come whenever you want. No one can stop you. I'll wait. Promise me you won't forget me." "I could never forget you, Journey. You are the light of my life. You always were." She left crying. I closed the door, and for the first time in days, I allowed myself to cry too. I cried for my granddaughter. I cried for the daughter I lost years ago, even though she was still alive. I cried for all the wasted years. I cried for the woman I used to be, who let herself be treated that way. But when I finished crying, I wiped my tears. I looked at myself in the entryway mirror. I saw a 67-year-old woman with deep wrinkles, dark circles under her eyes, and gray hair. But I also saw something else. I saw strength. I saw dignity. I saw someone who had finally said enough. And in that moment, I knew this was just the beginning, that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't even imagine yet. What they didn't know, what Tanisha and Derek couldn't even suspect, was that my plans went far beyond simply kicking them out of my house. I had documents to review, I had calls to make, I had a life to rebuild from scratch, and for the first time in 42 years, that life was going to be completely mine. The first few days after Tanisha and Derek left were strange. The house sounded different. Every creak of the wood, every gust of wind against the windows, every drip of the kitchen faucet resonated in a new way. It was as if the house itself was finally breathing after years of holding its breath. I woke up early out of habit, but I no longer rushed. I prepared coffee slowly, enjoying the process. I drank it at the kitchen table, looking out the window at the neglected yard that I had stopped tending years ago because Tanisha complained that I brought dirt inside when I worked with the plants. My neighbor, Bernice Miller, knocked on the door on the fourth day. She brought a container of homemade brisket, and that look of curiosity she tried to hide with concern. "Clara, honey, I saw Tanisha leave with suitcases. Is everything all right?" Bernice was 65 and had lived next door since I moved in 30 years ago. She had been a silent witness to everything. When I arrived, young and widowed with a small child, when I worked late into the night sewing in my living room, when Tanisha got married and left, and when she returned, transforming my home into a silent battleground. "Come on in, Bernice. I'll pour you some coffee." We sat at the kitchen table. I told her everything. About the coffee in my face, about the years of humiliation, about how I finally asked them to leave. Bernice listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, squeezing my hand during the hardest parts of the story. "Oh, Clara," she said when I finished, "I knew something was wrong. I saw you shrinking every time, getting quieter, like you were trying to make yourself small so you wouldn't bother anyone in your own house." That's exactly how I felt. Small, invisible, like I was occupying space that didn't belong to me. And what are you going to do now? I don't know yet, I admitted. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can breathe. Bernice stayed a little longer. She told me Tanisha had been talking to other neighbors, saying I had lost my mind, that I needed psychiatric help, that I was senile. Don't you believe anything that girl says, Bernice said firmly. Everyone who lives here saw how they treated you, the way she talked to you, how Derek looked at you like you were furniture. You're not crazy, Clara. You're waking up. Her words gave me strength. I realized I wasn't as alone as I thought. There were eyes that saw my suffering, even though I believed I was hiding it well. After Bernice left, I began going through papers. I pulled out the old metal box where I kept important documents. The deed to the house was there with my name on it, Clara Jenkins, widow of Arthur Jenkins. I had bought it in 1995 with the money I saved from sewing for 10 years. Tanisha was 15 then. I told her I was buying our future, a safe place where no one could ever kick us out. How ironic that 30 years later, I had to kick my own daughter out of that safe place. I continued reviewing documents. I found old yellowed receipts, Tanisha's enrollment in the private academy, which cost $300 a month, the expensive uniforms she demanded, the books that had to be new every year because she wouldn't use used ones, the graduation trip to Miami, Florida. That cost $15,000, which I paid for by selling my TV and my old refrigerator to buy a cheaper used one. I found the invoices for her wedding. The dress that cost $2,500, the reception hall, the food for 200 people, the music. It totaled $7,000. I put up $3,500, selling my new sewing machine and using savings I had set aside for my own old age. I kept searching and found more. Receipts for loans. I made them over the years, loans they never paid back. $1,000 for their first apartment's rent. $2,000 when Derek lost a job, $5,000 when Journey was born, $100 when their car broke down, $3,000 to pay off credit card debt. I took out a notebook and started doing the math. The amounts were staggering. In total, over 42 years, I had spent more than $300,000 on Tanisha. $300,000 that I could have used for my own life, to travel, to have comfort, to retire earlier and stop working so hard. And what did I get in return? Contempt, complaints, constant criticism, and hot coffee in my face. I allowed myself to feel rage for the first time. I didn't bottle it up in my chest like I always did. I let it out. I cried with rage. I slammed my fist on the table. I yelled out loud everything I could never say to Tanisha's face. When I finished, I felt exhausted but strangely relieved, as if I had expelled a poison that had been accumulating in my blood for years. I couldn't sleep well that night. Memories came in waves. I saw myself, a young 25-year-old, standing in front of Arthur's casket. My husband had died of a sudden heart attack. We didn't even have time to say goodbye. One day he was there, smiling, playing with Tanisha, and the next day he was gone. I was left alone with a 5-year-old girl, no close family, and barely any savings. But I didn't sink. I learned to sew by watching videos and asking the women at the market. I bought a used machine and started doing small alterations, then dresses, then formal gowns. I built a reputation. Clara, the seamstress, was known in 3 neighborhoods. I worked day and night. Tanisha grew up half-raised by neighbors who helped me when I couldn't leave the workshop I'd set up in my living room. I gave her everything I could, everything she asked for, always afraid that she would feel her father's absence, always trying to compensate for that loss, being both mother and father at once. Maybe that was my mistake. Giving her too much, not letting her feel frustration, not teaching her that things cost money, that you have to work for what you want, that not everything in life comes easy. I raised her like a princess while I lived like a servant, and she grew up believing that was normal, that I existed to serve her, that my function in life was to make hers easier. I got out of bed at 3 a.m, went to the kitchen, and heated milk. I sat at the table with the mug between my hands, looking into the darkness outside the window. At what point did Tanisha stop loving me? Or did she never truly love me? Was I just useful to her, a resource she could simply draw from? I remembered an afternoon when she was 17. I had sewn all night to finish 3 urgent dresses. I was exhausted. My fingers ached, my back was killing me. Tanisha came home from school and asked me to iron her uniform for the next day. I told her to do it herself because I needed a moment to rest. She got angry, yelled that I was a bad mother, that all her friends had mothers who did everything for them, that she was the only one with a mother who got lazy. I ended up ironing her uniform, of course, and apologizing for wanting to rest. That pattern repeated for years. I would give in. She would demand more. I would apologize for existing. She would make me feel like I was in the way. When she met Derek, I thought things would improve. I thought that by having her own family, she would need me less, pressure me less. But it was the opposite. Derek saw an opportunity in me. A free house, free services, available money whenever they needed it. I remembered the first time I overheard a conversation between them. It was about a year ago. I was going upstairs to tell them dinner was ready when I heard voices in their room. I stopped unintentionally, not intending to eavesdrop, but the words came through clearly. "When the old lady dies," Derek was saying, "this house will be yours. We can sell it or rent it out. It's a good property." "Don't talk like that," Tanisha replied, but without real conviction. "She's my mother. She's a mother who's lived her life. We're just starting. We deserve this house more than her. We're young. We have plans. She's just taking up space." "Sometimes I wish she would just leave," Tanisha said, and those words hit me harder than anything. "Go to a nursing home or something. But if we kick her out, people will talk. They'll say we're bad children." "Then we have to make her want to leave on her own," Derek suggested. "Make her life miserable. Little by little, she'll decide to go herself." I backed away from the door without making a sound. I went down the stairs as if in a trance. I didn't tell them dinner was ready. I locked myself in my room and cried in silence, stuffing my mouth with a pillow so they wouldn't hear me. Now, sitting in my kitchen at 3 a.m, I wondered why I didn't leave that very day. Why did I put up with another year of humiliation after hearing that? Why did I continue cooking for them, cleaning for them, paying their bills? The answer was simple and sad, because I didn't know I deserved better. Because I believed that's what mothers did. Endure, sacrifice, and slowly disappear until they were nothing. But not anymore. That cycle had been broken that morning when the coffee burned my face, and something inside me finally woke up. I spent the next few days reorganizing the house. I cleaned the room Tanisha and Derek had used. I found things they had left behind. Old clothes, unimportant papers, some broken objects. Everything went into the trash. In a closet drawer, I found a hidden envelope. I opened it. Inside were photographs of my house's contents, my television, my stove, the living room furniture, even my jewelry, the few pieces I had left. Each photo had a handwritten note with a price. They were appraising my belongings. A chill ran down my spine. Why did they need this? Were they planning to sell my things? Or was it an inventory for when I was gone? I kept the photographs as evidence. I didn't know of what exactly, but I felt they might be important. I also found a folder of documents hidden among old books. They were attempts by Derek to get loans using my address as his residence, attempts to take out credit cards using my house as collateral. None had been approved because he wasn't the owner, but the fact that he tried filled me with outrage. This man had been trying to leverage my property without my knowledge, my home that I had worked 10 years for, my legacy, my security. I called Bernice and showed her the documents. "Oh, Clara, this is serious. You should report him." "I don't want legal trouble," I said. "I just want them to leave me alone. But I am going to take this to a lawyer to get it registered, in case they try anything worse." Bernice recommended her nephew, Attorney Charles Davis. I called him, and he gave me an appointment that same week. Attorney Davis was a serious man in his mid-40s. He listened to my entire story without interruption, taking occasional notes. When I finished, he nodded slowly. Ms. Jenkins, you did the right thing by removing them from your house. What your son-in-law attempted could be considered attempted fraud. These documents are proof of that. I don't want to get into legal battles, I explained. I just want to protect myself. I understand. We'll do several things. First, a new will where you clearly specify your wishes. Second, a notarized document making it clear that your daughter and son-in-law have no claim to your property. Third, we will record these attempts at fraud in case you need to defend yourself in the future. Can I leave everything to my granddaughter? Of course. We can create a trust where Journey receives the inheritance when she turns 25, with a trustee to manage the assets until then. That's what I want to do. Over the next few weeks, I worked with Attorney Davis on all the paperwork. I signed documents, gave declarations, and organized my will. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had control over my future and over what would happen to my things when I was gone. I also made other decisions. I went to the bank and closed all the authorizations Tanisha had on my accounts. I discovered she had been withdrawing money regularly. Small amounts that I didn't notice, but which added up to several thousand a year. The bank executive showed me the transactions. Look, Ms. Jenkins, here are withdrawals every week. $50, $30, $80. I did the math. Over the last 3 years, Tanisha had taken approximately $5,000 from my account without my explicit knowledge. I had authorized her access, thinking it was for emergencies, for house purchases we shared, not to systematically rob me. I want to close her access immediately, I told the executive. Of course, I just need you to sign here. I signed. It felt like I was cutting an umbilical cord that should have been severed decades ago. I also canceled the supplementary credit card Tanisha had on my account. It was in my name, my responsibility, but she used it freely, never paying the bill. I always paid everything, always with the excuse that this month is tough, or I'll pay you back next payday. 3 days after canceling everything, my phone rang. It was Tanisha. I let it ring. She called again and again. On the 5th attempt, I answered. "What did you do, Mama?" she yelled from the other end of the line. "My card doesn't work. I was humiliated at the grocery store in front of everyone." "I canceled your card. It was mine. It was in my name." "You can't do that. I have expenses. I have to buy groceries." And I had expenses for 42 years, alone with no help. It's time you learn to live on your own resources. You're a terrible, miserable old woman. "Maybe," I replied calmly, "but I'm a miserable old woman with my money in my account and my peace in my house." I hung up. The phone immediately rang again. I turned it off. That night, Journey appeared at my door. She was alone. She had run away from the apartment Derek and Tanisha had rented. Her eyes were red from crying. "Grandma, can I come in?" I hugged her tight and let her in. I made her chamomile tea like when she was little. We sat on the living room sofa. "Mama won't stop talking bad about you," Journey said. "She says you went crazy, that you're cruel, that you abandoned us." "What do you think?" I asked her. Journey took a sip of tea before answering. "I think Mama always treated you badly, and you never said anything. I saw it, Grandma. I saw how she talked to you, how she asked for things without saying please or thank you, how Dad looked at you like you were invisible. It made me so angry, but I was a coward. I never said anything. I was afraid they would get mad at me, too." "You're not a coward, my love. You're a child. It wasn't your responsibility to defend me. But I could have. I could have said something, anything. You're here now. That's a lot." Journey stayed the night. The next morning, before she left, I gave her my new phone number written on a piece of paper. "This is my private number," I told her. "Don't give it to your mother or father. It's just for you and me. You can call me whenever you want, at any hour." "Promise me you won't disappear?" she asked in a small voice. "I promise I'll always be there for you, Journey. Always. But my days of being available to your mother and father are over. Do you understand?" "Yes, Grandma, I understand." I watched her leave with a tight heart, but knowing It was for the best. Journey needed to learn to navigate her own family. I could be her refuge, but I couldn't rescue her from everything. She too had to grow up, make her own decisions, and find her own strength. Weeks turned into months. The house remained silent, but it was a silence I had learned to enjoy. I went back to sewing, but now for pleasure, not out of necessity. I made embroidered tablecloths, decorative pillows, small items that I sold at the craft market on weekends. One afternoon, 3 months after the coffee incident, I was watering the front garden when I saw Tanisha standing outside my gate. She looked different, thinner, more tired, older than her 42 years should have shown. I didn't open the gate. I stayed on the other side, the hose still in my hand. "What do you need, Tanisha?" "I need to talk to you, Mama. We're talking now. Inside, please." "No, whatever you have to say, you can say it from right there." She looked uncomfortable. She glanced around, aware that some neighbors might be watching. "Mama, I want to apologize. What I did was wrong. The way I treated you was horrible. I'm sorry." Her words sounded rehearsed, as if she had practiced them in front of a mirror. "Are you sorry, or are you sorry that you lost access to my money and my house?" "Both things," she admitted, and at least that was honest. "I'm sorry I treated you badly, but I also need your help. Derek lost his job. We're behind on the rent. We don't have money to eat right." "That is your problem, Tanisha, not mine. I'm your daughter. You are my daughter, but I am a human being before I am your mother, and human beings deserve respect, something you never gave me. I gave you my childhood. I gave you my life. You gave me nothing that I didn't give you first, multiplied by 100. I gave you education, a roof, food, clothing, opportunities. I gave you love when you gave me contempt. I gave you patience when you gave me complaints. I gave you money when you gave me demands, and it was never enough. Mama, please." "No. The answer is no. I am not going to give you money. I am not going to let you live here again. I am not going to keep being your safety net while you use me as a punching bag." I saw tears roll down her cheeks, but they didn't move me. They were the same tears she had used all her life to manipulate me. I knew them well. "One day, you're going to need me," she said in a trembling voice, "and I won't be there." "Maybe you're right," I replied, "but I'd rather face that day alone and in peace than surrounded by people who hate me." She left without another word. I watched her walk down the street, her shoulders slumped, defeated. And me? I felt peace. I walked into my house, closed the door, and for the first time in months, I felt completely free. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Bigger decisions were waiting for me. Decisions that would change my life forever, and I was ready to make them. I woke up the next morning with a clarity I hadn't felt in decades. It was as if a thick fog that had been covering my mind for years had finally lifted. I could see sharply. I could think precisely. And for the first time I could remember, I knew exactly what I needed to do. It wasn't revenge I was seeking. It wasn't about making Tanisha and Derek suffer. It was something deeper and simpler at the same time. It was about reclaiming my life. It was about building something that was entirely mine, something no one could take away, something no one could contaminate with their contempt or manipulation. I sat at the kitchen table with a new notebook and a pen. I started making lists. Not emotional lists, but practical ones. Lists of action, lists of changes, lists of concrete steps toward a different life. The first list was called Legal Protection. I had made good progress with Attorney Davis, but I wanted to make sure there were no loose ends. I wrote down, verify the will is fully registered. Confirm Journey's trust is operating correctly. Review all of Derek's fraud documents are properly filed with the notary. The second list was called Financial Independence. Here, I wrote more detailed things. I needed to calculate exactly how much money I had, how much I spent a month, and how much I could generate with my sewing work. I needed to know if I could support myself alone, without anyone's help. The third list was the hardest one to write. It was called New Life, and under that title, I wrote something that surprised even me. Consider moving somewhere else. The idea had been circling my mind for weeks, but I hadn't dared to give it form. Now, seeing it written on paper, it felt real. It felt possible. It felt like the answer I had been searching for without knowing it. Why stay here, in this house full of bitter memories, in this neighborhood where the neighbors looked at me with pity or curiosity? In this city where I might run into Tanisha or Derek on any corner? Why not start over in a place where no one knew me, where no one knew my story, where I could simply be Clara without the weight of the past? I spent that morning researching on the old computer I had bought years ago and barely knew how to use. I looked for small towns in other states, quiet places with temperate climates, with small communities where life was simpler. I found a town in North Carolina called Oak Ridge. According to the website, it had about 8,000 residents. It was surrounded by mountains. It had pleasant weather year-round and was known for its artisan community. There were photos of tree-lined streets, colorful houses, and quiet town squares with large gazebos. I stared at those photos for a long time. I tried to imagine myself there, walking those streets, sitting in those squares, living in one of those small houses. And for the first time in a long time, the idea of my future didn't scare me. It gave me hope. I called the number listed for town tourism. A kind woman answered, "Good morning, Oak Ridge Tourism Office. Beatrice speaking." "Good morning, ma'am. My name is Clara, and I'm thinking about moving to your town. I'd like some information about what it's like to live there." "Oh, that's wonderful," Beatrice replied with genuine enthusiasm. "It's a very peaceful town, Ms. Jenkins, very safe. People are friendly. We have everything you need, a health center, a market, schools, and it's very beautiful, very green." We talked for almost half an hour. Beatrice told me about life in the town, about the festivals, about how most people knew each other. She told me about houses available to rent or buy, about the prices, about the cost of living. "Is there work there?" I asked. "I'm a seamstress." "Perfect. We have a crafts market every Saturday where many women sell their work, and there's always a need for a good seamstress. The one we had moved away last year to live with her daughter in the city, and everyone misses her." When I hung up the phone, my heart was racing. It wasn't nervousness. It was excitement. It was the feeling that a door had opened, and behind it, there was light, not darkness. But I couldn't act impulsively. I needed to plan every step carefully. I needed to be smart about this. I spent the next few days in silent mode. I didn't tell anyone about my plans, not even Bernice. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I needed to keep this completely private until everything was ready. If Tanisha found out I planned to leave, she might try to stop me somehow. I started separating my belongings into 3 categories: what I would take, what I would sell, and what I would donate. I discovered that after 67 years of life, I had accumulated a lot of stuff, but very little of it truly mattered. The old clothes I no longer wore went into the donation pile. The large furniture that would be impossible to transport went on the sale list. The excessive kitchenware, the decorations I never liked but had kept for years, the things Tanisha had left and never picked up, everything slowly left my house. What I decided to keep fit into a surprisingly small space. Enough clothes for 2 weeks, my portable sewing machine, a few books I loved, the truly important photographs, my mother's jewelry, and essential documents. Everything else was disposable. I hired a man who bought used furniture. He came over one afternoon, looked at everything I had for sale, and did some calculations in his notebook. "I can give you $2,000 for everything, ma'am." $2,500, I negotiated. $2,200, and I'll close the deal right now. Fine. He gave me the cash. He came back the next day with a truck and 2 helpers. They took the living room set, the dining room, the complete bedrooms, everything. I was left with only my bed, a small table with 2 chairs, and kitchen essentials. The house was nearly empty, but I felt lighter than ever. Then I called Attorney Davis. "Charles, I want to rent out my house. Can you recommend a reliable realtor?" "Of course, Ms. Jenkins. My sister-in-law, Shelby, has a real estate company. She's very serious and responsible. Would you like me to set up an appointment?" Yes, please. And Charles, there's a special condition. The rent money must be deposited directly into Journey's trust. Not one penny can go into my account or any account Tanisha might have access to. Is that understood? I will prepare the contract that way. 2 days later, I met Shelby, the attorney's sister-in-law. She was a direct, efficient woman in her 50s. She toured the house with a critical eye. It's a good property, Ms. Jenkins, well located, in good condition. I can easily rent it for $2,000 a month. The market is good right now. How long do you need to find tenants? Give me 2 weeks, 3 at most. Perfect. Attorney Davis will give you the contract details. It needs to be very specific about where the money is deposited. No problem, I'll take care of everything. We signed the agreement. Shelby took photos of the house, made an advertisement, and began showing it to potential tenants. I watched everything with a surprising calm. It was as if I were observing someone else's life, not my own. Meanwhile, I continued researching Oak Ridge. I found rental listings. One house particularly caught my eye. It was small, 2 bedrooms, with a front yard and a view of the mountains. It cost $875 a month. I called the number on the ad. Good afternoon. I'm interested in the house you have for rent. Oh, yes, of course, replied an older woman's voice. I'm Beatrice, the owner. The house is available. Would you like to come see it? I live in another city, I explained. Would it be possible to do a video call to see it? Oh, I don't know how to use those computer things, Beatrice admitted. But my granddaughter can help me. Leave me your number and she'll call you. Half an hour later, a young girl, Beatrice's granddaughter, video called me from her cell phone. She showed me the whole house as she walked through it. It was simple but cozy. White walls, tile floors, a basic but functional kitchen, a clean bathroom, 2 small but sufficient bedrooms. The yard had rose bushes and a lemon tree. It's perfect, I told the girl. Can I rent it without seeing it in person? My grandma says yes. If you deposit the first month's rent and 1 month's security deposit in advance. Can I deposit it tomorrow? Sure, I'll send you my grandma's account details. That night, lying in my bed in the nearly empty house, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt excitement for the future. I felt curiosity about what was to come. I felt that my life hadn't ended at 67. It was just truly beginning. The next day, I went to the bank and made the transfer to Beatrice, $1,750 in total. First month, plus deposit. It was a lot of money, but I had it. I had saved it for years, and now I was finally going to use it for myself, just for me. While making the transaction at the bank, I did a few other things. I opened a new bank account that only I would know about. I transferred the majority of my money into it, leaving only the minimum in the old account. I changed all my passwords. I made sure no one but me had access to anything. I also went to the phone company and bought a new cell phone with a new number. Only 3 people would have that number: Journey, Bernice, and Attorney Davis. No one else. Every action I took made me feel stronger, more in control, more the owner of my destiny. It was as if I were building a fortress around my new life, brick by brick. Bernice came to visit one afternoon and was shocked to see the empty house. Clara, what did you do? Did you sell everything? Yes, I replied simply. Why? I looked her in the eyes. She was my only true friend. She deserved to know the truth. I'm moving, Bernice, to a town far away from here, to start over. I saw tears well up in her eyes. When? In about 2 weeks, as soon as the realtor finds tenants for the house. And Tanisha, does she know? No, and I don't want her to know until I'm gone. That's why I'm asking you not to tell anyone. Please. Bernice hugged me tight. I won't say a word, but I'm going to miss you so much, friend. And I'll miss you, but I need to do this. I need to get away from everything that hurt me. I need to find out who I am when I'm not being Tanisha's mother or Derek's victim. I just want to be Clara. I understand, Bernice said, wiping her tears, and I think you're very brave. The following week, Shelby called me. Ms. Jenkins, I found tenants. It's a young couple with a baby, very responsible, good income, impeccable references. They want to sign the lease this week and move in next Monday. Does that work for you? That sounds perfect. Everything was falling into place, as if the universe were finally conspiring in my favor instead of against me. I began to pack the little I would take. 2 large suitcases and 1 box of fragile items. That was it. 67 years of life fit into 2 suitcases and a box. 3 days before I left, Journey called me on the old cell phone. "Grandma, can I come see you?" "Of course, my love. Come whenever you want." She arrived that afternoon. When she walked in and saw the empty house, she froze at the door. "Grandma, what happened here?" "Sit down, Journey. I need to tell you something." We sat on the only 2 chairs left in the kitchen. I made chamomile tea for both of us and told her everything about my plans to move, about the town in North Carolina, about the house I had rented, about my decision to start over. Journey cried. She cried a lot. But when I explained that she had my new number, that we could talk every day, that when she turned 18, she could come visit me whenever she wanted, she calmed down a bit. "Mama doesn't know, does she? I don't want you to tell her yet. Once I'm settled into my new life, then she can know, but not before. And if she pressures you to tell her, then tell her you don't know, that you came to say goodbye, but I didn't tell you where I was going. That'll be true, because I won't give you my address yet. When you're an adult, then yes." "Why, Grandma?" "Because your mother might pressure you to tell her, and I don't want to put you in that position. It's easier if you truly don't know." Journey understood. She was a smart girl. She knew the situation was complicated and that I was trying to protect her too. "I'm going to miss you so much, Grandma. And I'll miss you, my love. But this isn't goodbye. It's see you later. And we'll be in touch always. I promise." I gave her my new phone number, written on a piece of paper. "Keep it safe and delete this message after you write it down somewhere secure where your mother can't see it. I'll put it in my journal. Mama never reads my journal." We spent the rest of the afternoon together. We cooked something simple. We talked about her school, her dreams, what she wanted to study when she was older. It was a beautiful afternoon, filled with that genuine connection that had always existed between us. When she left, she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Take care, Grandma, and be happy. You deserve it more than anyone in the world." "You too, my love. And remember, when you feel lonely or sad, just call me. I'll always answer." I watched her walk away down the street and felt that motherly and grandmotherly ache, that pain of letting go of someone you love. But I also felt peace because I knew this was the right thing for me, for her, for both of us. The last few days were a whirlwind of activity. Signing documents with the realtor, making sure all the utilities were transferred correctly, closing old accounts, and donating the last few things I didn't sell. The night before I left, Bernice organized a small farewell dinner. It was just her, her husband Earl, and me. We ate brisket that she had prepared herself. We talked about the old days, all the years we had been neighbors. "Clara, you have my number," Bernice said. "Call me when you get there so I know you're safe." "I will. And you have my new number, but don't give it to anyone, okay?" "No one. It's saved under a fake name in my phone, just in case Tanisha ever checks it." I laughed. Bernice thought of everything. That night, I slept in my empty house for the last time. My 2 suitcases and my box were next to the door, ready to go. The moving truck would come tomorrow to pick up my sewing machine and the few items I would ship separately. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark. I thought of all the years I had lived in this house, the good and the bad, the moments of joy when Tanisha was a child, and the moments of pain when she became my torment. But above all, I thought of the woman I had been and the woman I was about to become. I was no longer the Clara who endured everything in silence. I was no longer the sacrificial mother who disappeared so others could shine. I was no longer the victim of my own kindness. I was a woman who had chosen her dignity above all else, a woman who had decided that she deserved respect, true love, and peace. A woman who wasn't afraid to start over at 67. I fell asleep with a smile on my face. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I got dressed. I made one last cup of coffee in that kitchen. I drank it slowly, looking out the window at the yard I never tended like before. At 7 in the morning, Bernice knocked on the door. She had insisted on taking me to the bus terminal. "You are not taking a taxi. I'm driving you. It's the least I can do." We loaded my suitcases into her car. I took one last look at the house. I didn't feel nostalgia. I only felt closure, like finishing a good book that has reached its natural end. "Goodbye, house," I whispered. "Thank you for everything." Bernice drove me to the terminal. The ride was silent, but it was a comfortable silence. When we arrived, she helped me take down the suitcases. "Clara, be very happy. You deserve it so much." "Thank you for everything, Bernice. For your friendship, for your support, for not judging me." "I could never judge you, only admire you." We hugged for a long time. Then I grabbed my suitcases and entered the terminal. I bought my ticket, bus to North Carolina, departure at 9 in the morning. The trip would last 6 hours. I sat in the waiting area surrounded by other people who were also traveling toward their own destinations. I looked at my old cell phone one last time. There were messages from Tanisha, many of them, all variations on the same theme. She needed money, she needed help, she needed me to be her mother again. I turned off the phone. I put it at the bottom of my purse. I would never use it again. I took out my new cell phone. Clean, new, with no history, with only 3 contacts: Journey, Bernice, and Attorney Davis. They announced my bus. I stood up, took my bags, and walked toward the boarding gate. With every step I took, I felt like I was leaving behind not just a place, but an entire life. A life of unacknowledged sacrifice, a life of unrequited love, a life of being less so others could be more. And ahead of me, though I couldn't see it clearly yet, was something new, something mine, something no one could ever take away. I boarded the bus, found my seat by the window, stored my bags, and sat down. The bus pulled away. I watched the city disappear through the window, and with it, 42 years of a life that no longer belonged to me. I closed my eyes and smiled. Clara Jenkins, widow of Arthur Jenkins, had died that morning, and in her place, simply Clara, a free woman, was born. The bus arrived in Oak Ridge, North Carolina, as the sun began to set. 6 hours of travel through winding roads, crossing landscapes that gradually changed from urban to rural, from gray to green, from noisy to silent. I got off the bus with my suitcases, breathing in the fresh mountain air. It was different, cleaner, lighter, as if even the air here didn't carry the weight of the past. Beatrice, the owner of the house I had rented, was waiting for me at the small-town terminal. She was a woman in her 70s, with snow-white hair pulled back in a neat bun and a wide smile that illuminated her wrinkled face. "Are you Ms. Jenkins?" "Yes, I am." "Welcome to Oak Ridge, my dear. Come on, my son-in-law is going to take us to the house." A young man helped us with the suitcases and drove us through tree-lined streets to the house. It was just as it looked in the video call, but better in person. It had a charm the images hadn't captured. The white walls glowed under the setting sun. The rose bushes in the yard were blooming. The lemon tree gave off a fresh aroma. "Here are the keys," Beatrice said, handing them to me. "The house is clean. I left fresh sheets on the beds and some basics in the kitchen. Soap, toilet paper, things like that, so you don't have to rush out to the store today." "Thank you so much, Ms. Beatrice. That is so kind of you. I live 2 blocks away. Anything you need, you look me up. And tomorrow, if you'd like, I can take you to see the market and the town square so you can get familiar with the area." They left, and I was alone in my new home. I walked slowly through each room, touching the walls, opening the windows, letting the fresh air in. It was small, yes, but it was mine. No one would scream at me here. No one would make me feel like I was in the way. No one would treat me like trash. That first night, I slept soundly, without nightmares, without waking up every hour. It was as if my body finally understood that it was safe. The first few days in Oak Ridge were for exploration and discovery. Beatrice kept her promise and took me to see the town, the Saturday market, where I met other artisans who sold embroidery, hand-woven scarves, and ceramics. The main square with its antique gazebo and benches under the trees. The small church whose bells chimed every hour. The local bakery where they made the most delicious donuts I had tasted in years. The people were genuinely kind. Not the forced courtesy of the city, but the real warmth of small communities. "Good morning, ma'am," they would say in passing. "How are you doing this morning?" the neighbors asked. "Welcome to the town," they repeated over and over. I set up my sewing machine in the second bedroom, which I converted into my workshop. I bought fabric at the market. I started making embroidered tablecloths, napkins with floral designs, and decorative pillows. I worked at my own pace, without pressure, just for the pleasure of creating something beautiful. The first Saturday I set up my stall at the crafts market. I sold 3 tablecloths and 5 napkins. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was mine, earned with my hands, without anyone telling me it was insufficient or that I was doing things wrong. 2 weeks after arriving, I called Journey from my new cell phone. "Grandma," she answered, her voice excited. "Hello, my love. How are you?" "Oh, Grandma, I've missed you so much. Where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm doing great, Journey. Better than ever. I'm in a beautiful, quiet town. I have a little house with a garden. I'm sewing again. I'm at peace." "I'm so happy to hear that, Grandma. You sound different. You sound happy." "I am, my love. For the first time in a long time, I am." "Your mother is frantic," Journey said, lowering her voice. "She doesn't know where you are. She went to your house and found other people living there. She was furious. She screamed that you had no right to rent the house without telling her." "That house was always mine, Journey. Always. I decided what to do with it." "I know, Grandma, but Mama won't accept it. She says you'll be back, that this is just a tantrum." "It's not a tantrum. It's a decision, and I'm not coming back." We talked for a while longer. I told her about the town without giving her specific location details. She told me about school, about how Tanisha and Derek were having financial problems without my support. "Mama had to get a job as a cashier at a supermarket," she told me. "She comes home tired every day and just complains. She says you forced her to do this." I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that, but I didn't feel guilt either. Tanisha was experiencing for the first time in her life what it was like to earn a living with real work, what I had done for 42 years. "Journey, your mother will be fine. She's young, she's capable. She just needs to learn what I never taught her, that no one owes you anything in life." Months passed. Autumn gave way to winter, although winter in Oak Ridge was mild, only a little cooler. I developed a routine. I woke up with the sun, made coffee, and ate breakfast slowly in my garden. Then I worked in my workshop, sewing, embroidering, creating. In the afternoons, I walked through the town, greeted the neighbors, and bought what I needed at the market. I spent the evenings reading or simply sitting in my living room enjoying the silence. I made friends, other women my age or older. Elaine, who made ceramics. Margaret, who wove scarves. Ruth, who painted landscapes. Denise joined us when she moved to town last year. We met on Thursday afternoons for coffee and a chat. We shared stories, laughter, and comfortable silences. None of them knew my complete story. To them, I was simply Clara, the seamstress who arrived from the city looking for peace. And that was enough. 1 year passed, then 2. Journey called me every week. She told me about her life, about how she had started college to study education. She had gotten a scholarship and was working part-time at a daycare. She was building her own life, independent of her parents. "Grandma, when I turn 18, I want to come visit you. It's almost a year away. When you turn 18, I'll give you my address and you'll be welcome anytime you want to come. And Mama, aren't you going to talk to her again?" "I don't know, Journey. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe someday, but not now. Not yet. One spring day, 2.5 years after my arrival in Oak Ridge, I was at the market selling my products when I saw a scene that deeply affected me. A young woman in her 30s was arguing with an older woman who seemed to be her mother. The young woman spoke cruelly, contemptuously, while the older woman just bowed her head. "You're useless," the young woman shouted. "You don't do anything right. I'm sick of you." I saw myself in that older woman. I saw Tanisha in that young woman, and something stirred inside me. I waited for the young woman to leave. Then I approached the older woman who was discreetly wiping her tears. "Are you all right, ma'am?" She looked at me in surprise. Yes, it's just my daughter. She's stressed." "Stress doesn't justify disrespect," I said softly. "No one has the right to treat you that way, not even your daughter. But I don't do things the way she wants. You do them the way you can, and that's enough. Ma'am, listen to me closely. You don't have to put up with bad treatment just because you're a mother. True love doesn't abuse. True love doesn't humiliate. You deserve respect. You deserve dignity." I saw her eyes fill with tears again, but these were different. "No one has ever told me that before." "Well, I'm telling you now, and I hope you remember it." I don't know if my words helped her, but I needed to say them. For her, for the Clara of 3 years ago, for all the women who believe they have to endure everything in silence. That night, sitting on my porch, looking at the stars, I thought about Tanisha. I wondered how she was, if she had changed, if she had learned anything, if she ever thought of me with anything other than resentment. And I realized something important. It didn't matter. It no longer mattered whether Tanisha changed or not. It no longer mattered if she missed me or hated me. It no longer mattered if she ever understood the harm she caused me, because my peace no longer depended on her. My happiness was no longer tied to her approval or her love. I had built a life that was mine, completely mine, and no one could take it away. I had won something more valuable than revenge or recognition. I had won my freedom. I had regained my dignity. I had found my peace, and that was more than I ever thought I would have. The life I built in Oak Ridge wasn't glamorous. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentic. It was honest. It was mine. And for the first time in 69 years of life, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 5 years have passed since that morning of the hot coffee in my face. 5 years since I made the decision that changed my life forever. Today, I woke up, as always, to the sound of birds singing in the lemon tree. The sun streams softly through my bedroom window. Cinnamon, the orange cat I adopted 3 years ago, is curled up at my feet, purring with that sound that gives me peace. I get up without rushing. There's no reason to hurry anymore. No one is waiting for me to make coffee or breakfast. No voices are yelling that I do everything wrong. There is only the gentle silence of my house. That silence I learned to love. I put on my favorite robe, the blue floral one I bought at the market, and walk barefoot to the kitchen. I make coffee slowly, enjoying every step of the process. The smell fills me with satisfaction. I take my mug to the porch and sit in the wooden rocker that Beatrice gave me when I turned 70. The mountains are beautiful this morning. A slight mist covers them like a delicate veil. I drink my coffee, watching them, not thinking about anything in particular, just existing in this moment that is completely mine. My life here is simple, uncomplicated, and precisely because of that, it is perfect. In the mornings, I work in my workshop. My sewing machine hums as I create tablecloths, napkins, and pillows. My hands aren't as quick as they used to be, but they are still capable. Every stitch is a meditation. Every finished piece is a small victory. On Thursdays, I meet with my friends Elaine, Margaret, Ruth, and Denise. We drink coffee, eat danishes, and talk about everything and nothing. We laugh, sometimes we cry, and we always listen to each other. None of them ask about my past. Some sense there are difficult stories behind my arrival in Oak Ridge, but they respect my silence, and I respect theirs. We all arrived here carrying something. We all found a place here to let it go. Journey visited me last month. She came for a week during her college break. She's 20 now, in her third year of studying education. She is a beautiful, strong, independent young woman. We walked through the town together. I showed her my favorite spots, the bakery where I buy my treats, the overlook where you can see all the mountains, the shop where I buy my fabrics. Grandma, you are so different from how you used to be, she told me one afternoon while we were drinking hot chocolate in the town square. Different how? Lighter, more peaceful. It's like you glow from the inside. Before, you always looked tired and sad, like you were carrying the world on your shoulders. That's exactly how I felt. But I left that world behind, Journey. And with it, all that burden. She told me that Tanisha is still working at the supermarket, that Derek finally left for good, found another woman, and started a new family, that Tanisha lives alone in a small apartment and sometimes asks about me. What does she ask? Where is she? How is she? Is she ever coming back? Is she ever going to forgive me? I forgave her a long time ago, Journey. But forgiving doesn't mean returning. It means letting go. It means stopping carrying the pain someone else caused me. She has changed, Grandma. Really, the suffering has made her more humble, more aware. I'm happy to hear that. Sincerely happy. But her change is for herself, not for me. I've already built my own life, a life I like, a life that gives me peace. Journey understood. She always understands. That's why I love her so much. Last night, after watering my rose bushes, I sat on the porch to watch the sunset. The sky was painted orange and pink. The crickets were starting their nightly concert. Cinnamon was in my lap, purring, and I thought about the entire journey. I thought about the Clara of 5 years ago, that woman who shrank so as not to bother anyone, that woman who apologized for existing, that woman who believed her worth was in how much she could give, how much she could sacrifice, how much she could endure. And I looked at the Clara of now, this 72-year-old woman who lives alone and doesn't feel lonely. This woman who works for pleasure, not obligation. This woman who has true friends, not just people who use her. This woman who wakes up every day without fear, without anxiety, without that knot in her stomach. The change wasn't easy. There were nights of tears. There were moments of doubt. There were days when I wondered if I did the right thing by leaving, by letting go of everything, by breaking that tie that bound me to Tanisha. But every time those doubts came, I only needed to remember that morning, the coffee burning my face, the words like knives, the contempt in my own daughter's eyes. And then I remembered that I wasn't running away. I was choosing myself. I was saving myself. I was giving myself the opportunity to truly live before it was too late. Not all stories have perfect endings where everyone reconciles and lives happily ever after. Sometimes, the happy ending is simply finding your own peace, learning that it's okay to set boundaries, and understanding that self-love is not selfishness. Tanisha may be a better person now. I hope she is. But that new person doesn't need me to validate her change, and I don't need her to validate my decision. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is letting each other go. Today, as I write these reflections in my journal, I realize something fundamental. I don't regret a single day, not a single moment. This small house, this quiet town, this simple life are more than I ever dreamed of having. Not because they are extraordinary, but because they are genuinely mine. No one here tells me how to live. No one criticizes me for existing. No one expects me to sacrifice myself until I disappear. I am simply Clara, a woman who sews, who waters her plants, who drinks coffee on her porch, who chats with her friends, who loves her granddaughter, and who lives in peace, and that is more than enough. It's everything I ever needed. Life taught me that it's never too late to start over, that dignity is priceless, that peace is non-negotiable, and that true love does not hurt. And it taught me something even more important, that I deserve to be happy, not for what I do for others, but simply for existing. To all the women reading this, who are living what I lived, I say, you too deserve peace. You too deserve respect. You too deserve a life where you don't have to shrink yourself so you won't bother anyone. It's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to say enough. It's never too late to start anew. The sun is setting behind the mountains. Cinnamon yawns and stretches on my lap. A simple but delicious dinner I prepared calmly awaits me inside. Tomorrow will be another peaceful day in Oak Ridge, North Carolina. Another day of this life I built for myself. Another day of peace. And I ask for nothing more. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.